I was standing behind my own steel gate watching a line of luxury SUVs choke the quiet lakeside road when a woman in oversized sunglasses pointed at me and screamed that I had 10 seconds to obey her. 2 hours later, that same woman was in handcuffs, her community celebration in ruins, her authority stripped away in front of everyone who'd watched her bully me. And the part that still keeps me up at night isn't the shouting or the police lights. It's how close I came to believing she was right, and that I should just give up. I live on a small stretch of lakefront property that most people around here only ever see from a distance. It's quiet, private, and fenced off for a reason. I bought the land years ago, long before the neighborhood behind me grew into a manicured HOA paradise with matching mailboxes and rules about grass height. My house sits just outside their boundary, a legal island of calm. No HOA dues, no meetings, no one telling me what color my fence should be. Just me, my daughter, and the sound of water against the shore. That morning had started like any other. Coffee cooling on the porch rail, the lake glassy and still, my daughter inside getting ready for the day. I remember thinking how rare peace like that feels, how easily it can be taken for granted. I didn't know it was about to be tested. I heard the engines before I saw anything. One SUV, then another. Tires crunching gravel, doors slamming, laughter carrying across the water. I stood up and walked toward the gate, already uneasy. When I got there, I saw them. At least 40 people spilling out of their vehicles dressed like they were headed to a wedding or a resort party. Folding tables, coolers, trays of food. Someone even had a portable speaker blasting music like they owned the place. Then she stepped forward. Perfect hair, designer sunglasses, a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. She looked at me the way someone looks at an inconvenience, not a person. "Open the gate," she said, sharp and loud, waving her manicured hand as if I were staff. I told her calmly that this was private property, that the gate would stay closed. She scoffed. "You don't understand. This is a community event." That's when I recognized her. Linda Parker. Everyone in the neighborhood called her Linda to her face, but behind her back. Karen. She was the president of the HOA next door, and she ran it like a personal kingdom. I'd never had a reason to deal with her before. Apparently she'd decided to make one. A week earlier I'd found a notice slipped under my door. No envelope, no signature. Just a printed sheet claiming residents were required to share lake access for HOA events. I'd laughed when I read it. The document was nonsense. My land wasn't part of the HOA. Never had been. Never would be. I tossed it in a drawer and forgot about it. Standing there now with the crowd behind her and entitlement dripping from every word, I realized she hadn't been asking. She'd been preparing. "I can deny access," I said, keeping my voice steady. "And I am." Her lips twitched. "If you don't open that gate in the next 10 seconds, I'll have you fined and evicted." That almost made me smile. Almost. Instead, I unlocked my phone and held it up. "Then you'd better call the cops." That's when she lost it. She spun around, pointing at me like I'd pulled a weapon. "He's threatening us. Someone call the police." My daughter peeked through the window behind me. I caught her eye and gave her a small nod. I told her it was okay. I wasn't sure if I was trying to convince her or myself. When the patrol cars rolled up, lights flashing against the water, Linda rushed toward them like a director finally getting her cue. She talked over everyone, waving a thick folder of papers with the HOA logo stamped on top. She demanded my arrest, claimed I was blocking community property. One of the officers turned to me and asked if I could step forward. I did, calmly. I handed him my ID and pointed to the sign bolted into the gate. "Private land, my name, clear as day." Linda laughed sharp and fake. "He put that up himself. The HOA owns this access. I have paperwork." The officer flipped through her pages, frowning. Then he asked me if I had proof. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a folded copy of my deed. Signed, stamped, dated years before the HOA even existed. Her face froze. "Ma'am," the officer said slowly, "this land isn't under HOA control." She smirked. "That can't be right. I know people in City Hall." I told her maybe she should call them because she was on camera trespassing. Something flickered in her eyes then. Rage, fear, a realization that yelling louder wasn't working. The cops left with a warning to her. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. As soon as the patrol cars disappeared, she stepped back toward me, lowering her voice. "You'll regret this." Then she said something she wasn't supposed to know. "You think that badge in your past still makes you special?" I felt my chest tighten. She'd done her homework, dug into my life, my service, my loss. She whispered it like a weapon, like something fragile she could crush. "Ex-military, widower, raising a kid alone," she said softly. "Sad story. Maybe you're not stable enough to own lakefront property." I wanted to explode. Instead, I stood there numb. Before I could respond, she turned to her guests and shouted, "He's a threat. He's armed." Phones came out. People gasped. Someone dialed 911 again. I raised my hands. Calm, controlled. "No one's armed," I said. "But you might want to tell your guests to step off my land." She didn't listen. She popped open the trunk of her SUV and started unloading tables banners reading HOA Summer Celebration Coolers Full of Alcohol. She was setting up right there, inches from my fence, music blaring across the lake like a challenge. My daughter stepped onto the porch, her phone shaking in her hands. She asked me if this was allowed. I told her no, but inside something cracked. For the first time I wondered if fighting was worth it, if peace was easier. If letting her have her way for one day would protect my kid from seeing this ugliness. I stood there watching strangers dance on my land, watching a woman smear my name in front of a crowd, and I felt tired, deep tired, the kind that makes you want to fold. Then I remembered the cameras, hidden, quiet, recording everything, every lie, every threat, every fake claim of authority. I went inside, pulled the footage, and sent it to a friend I'd served with years ago. Someone who still wore a uniform. I didn't like asking for help, but this wasn't about pride anymore. It was about drawing a line. The music got louder. Linda danced with a wine glass pretending she'd won. Some guests laughed too loudly. Others glanced nervously at the cameras along my fence. Then I heard engines again. 3 county trucks rolled up. Code enforcement. The lead officer stepped out and asked who was responsible for the gathering. Linda rushed forward, waving her papers again, claiming HOA land. The officer shook his head. "According to county maps, this land belongs to Jake Miller. You're trespassing." Chairs folded fast. Plates hit the ground. The party evaporated. Linda didn't move. She stared at me like this was personal, like I'd betrayed her. "You did this," she hissed. "No," I said quietly. "You did." When asked for ID, she hesitated. Then she pulled out a badge. "I'm with county planning," she snapped. The officer studied it, then looked up. "This is fake." The silence that followed was heavier than any shout. Impersonating a government official is a felony. The cuffs clicked shut. As they led her away, phones pointed at her. Now she screamed that I'd ruined her. I met her eyes and told her the truth. She'd done that herself. When the cars drove off, the lake went quiet again. Just water. Wind. My daughter's hand in mine. Sometimes standing your ground doesn't look heroic. Sometimes it's just refusing to open a gate.